So what is up, guys? You got your boy Jet Stingren here today, and today we're back with some more reverse 1999 content. And today we're going to be doing a video on Lucy's best teams. Now I'm going to do in this video breaking down some of the best teams you can run with Lucy. I'm also providing a free-to-play option because, again, a lot of new players are probably going to be starting around the same time as Anniversary. So I want to give a simple standard team that can work for them. But these are going to primarily be focused on Lucy's best potential teams in standard content. Now, of course, this is completely up to you what you have in your account. I will try to provide any sort of alternative if you have specific things met, or just easier units that you could potentially get your hands on. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about our teams. Alright, so we're here with the first team, and this team is going to be considered the free-to-play team. The free-to-play team is basically going to be these units. Currently, these two units is pretty much a perfect skeleton for the type of teams that you want to run into content going forward. Is, you know, some type of a buffer healer and another form of support. That's kind of just the skeleton you run with a lot of teams to really make your DPS shine as much as you possibly can. With, of course, with any real available option that you have. That's the general goal for team building. I will be making a video, I want to say maybe tomorrow, about team building and practices you should take. But ultimately speaking, this is the skeleton: a support, a healer, and another support or sustain unit. That's really just the best I can really recommend for you. Now, the reason why this is kind of free to play team, because these two units you can get perfectly for free. You get this one just by starting up the game, and you get this one over the course of 7 days. You won't get this skin because this was a battle pass skin. This is a part of patch 1.5 if I'm not mistaken. And the Beacorn is the only gacha unit that you will have to hope for. As far as I'm aware, I don't know if the Lucy banner will have Beacorn featured as a rate up. If she will, then this is a great time to get Beacorn, because Beacorn is going to be a great support for her, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Anyway, let's talk about the units here and what upgrades you can make to this potential team. So Sonato is again free, and she's still a perfectly serviceable support, even just as a 5-star. Even if you don't happen to get some of the best options in the game, then you can still use her in a lot of the content going forward, because she still works, because she does have a pretty good buff, which gives you 25% damage dealt up, which is going to be great for DPS, and 25% damage taken reduction, which is good. And it also gives penetration rate to herself, which unfortunately it's only for self. If it was penetration rate for everyone, then I do think Sonato's value would shoot up a little bit more, because penetration rate basically means extra damage on top of the damage that you're already getting, because it's penetration basically means like you're ignoring a portion of defense, which is pretty good. But ultimately that's not the case. It's just for herself. But a max of 25% and a max of 25% damage dealt up and damage taken reduction is pretty solid for most stages of the game. There's not too many units that give a high amount of this, so there's that. If you want to go for another particularly different option, I will name that in just a second. But she does have access to a form of crowd control. Crowd control is very important for enemies that like to gang up on a specific target, or you need to heal and you particularly need to get an enemy out of commission for a turn, so you can be a little bit more safe. So her being able to disarm basically means they can't use attacking incantations, because they can't damage you unless they have a form to dispel that disarm effect, which is good. And her ultimate is just straight up damage. Doesn't really do anything, but it has just high penetration rate, so that's really just it. But there's that. If you want to directly upgrade Sonato, then the best option would be Anali, who is pretty much the same thing as Sonato, carbon copy almost, but she has way more AP friendliness, and I'll talk about why that matters in team building when I make that video. But a buff that is basically the same, it's just you don't get the penetration rate because it was only for self anyway. You get just 5% more in terms of damage dealt up and damage taken reduction, same 2 rounds. She also has a form of disarm, but it's only available at 3-star. But with Anali, she has an ability to rank up her own incantations from +1 star to based on the furthest right card, and she can do this automatically on her ultimate. So it's not that bad to get into a 3-star incantation with Anali, to be completely honest. If you really need to go for that disarm, that daze effect, technically daze is even better, because with disarms, enemies can still buff, but with daze they can't act at all. They can't do anything. They're just stuck. So pretty good option. As I mentioned before, The ultimate, which is going to be this, which gives you Empower Incantation for 2 rounds, which basically means you can buff up your own cards over the course of 2 rounds, which is again really good. But that is the best option if you want to go for Sonato. Next up is DK. DK, by every stretch of the word of being a 5-star healer, is not the best. She's not very good. She does put out somewhat okay DPS, but for healing, which is what you'd really want her for, she's not the greatest. So good option number 1 would be Balloon Party if you happen to roll into BP. BP is still a really good reliable healer, even though she has the worst form of healing. The reason why is because her healing is kind of based on HP loss. And the reason why this is the worst form is because if you really just want to top up your units and you don't have much HP loss, then your heals aren't as potent. But if you have a lot of HP that's lost, then your heals do become more potent. It's kind of just a balancing act of trying to figure out when to heal with Balloon Party, which can be particularly a little bit of an annoyance more than anything. She does come with a cushion effect on her ultimate, where she does have this party balloon effect, where if you get hit, the balloon of innocence, my bad. If you get hit, you get recovered for HP, and then you recover a little bit of damage there. So that's really good. It's just a secondary form of cushion that protects yourself from taking a little bit of the extra damage, and it keeps you a little bit more sustained. But yeah, the best option though 100% is Yensei. Yensei has the most comfortable form of healing because it's based on HP, which is really good. As you can see, it's based on user's own max HP, and it is a lot of ways that you can really get some really nice HP with Yensei. Even using some of the more jank 5-star cubes that you can have access to, she can still reach like relatively high amounts of HP without really having to break too much investment, which is good. That's really good. So the higher HP gets, the stronger her heals become. She also has a way to kind of further increase damage. This doesn't stack, I believe, with I don't think this stacks with B-Corn, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're the same type of debuff. But the main thing here is just going to be the healing, the sturdiness effect that comes with her healing, the big shield she has, which again, the more HP she has, the stronger the shield. And yeah, but if you want the best healing option, it's definitely going to be Yensei. Yensei is easily one of the best 5-star healers you can ever go for. And starting at patch 1.9, she will be in the banners to pull, but she's only going to be like not a guaranteed unit. So again, good luck if you happen to go for her. For B-Corn, it's really hard because you really want B-Corn for that reality shred. There's not too many units that are 5-star that can meet the criteria that she has, which is the problem. Because a unit that I could say that does a similar thing, like Diggers, for example, has this access to this debuff, but Diggers debuff is 100% worse compared to B-Corn, and Diggers is just a bad unit in general compared to B-Corn, who's a great sub DPS and a great debuffer. So I cannot in good conscience recommend that you say, oh, I got Diggers, I'm going to use them as my debuffer. But if you get them, maybe, maybe. It's a very strong maybe. I don't want to leave you out of any potential like bad options, but he's just not a great option in all things seriousness. Like, I don't think he's a great option there. But this is going to be kind of the early core that you can go for. Alright, coming in, the next option here is going to be the second team, and this is going to be a team that is focused around dealing maximum critical damage with Lucy. If you guys don't know about Lucy already, just as is, you do need to build her for crit. That is the best way to get most of her damage output because of how strong her skills are. So you definitely want to be gearing her up to crit, as I mentioned before. With most of the modern day DPSs that we have in the game, building them for crit is 100% the best way to go. So these are going to be the 3 units that's going to give you the best results in terms of building a good crit team for Lucy. Now I want to talk about each unit to provide you with some alternatives and go on from there. So first thing is going to be Urza. Urza's here because he has a special buff as part of his mushroom, which gives you Disconcernment, which gives you 40% critical damage, which is very good. Now of course it is stack based, so as soon as that unit hits a crit, that basically means that those stacks will disappear. So for 2 times that you can hit a crit, you get 40% additional damage, which is really nice. He also has access to vulnerability as part of his mushrooms, which give you a debuffing effect, which has them take 25% extra damage, which again, very good. and his ultimate is actually a pretty nice one. While you won't be getting into his ultimate super common, because again, he's more of a patience unit where you just build his mushrooms. You can, of course, choose to accelerate if you really want to get more stacks of his effects going a little bit quicker. But if you aren't really using him like just actively, you can still, of course, progressively get into the ultimate, which gives you Moxie +1 and Eureka +1. Moxie +1 is very important for Lucy because you want to be getting into her ultimate as quickly as you can, because you want to be firing off her ultimate as fast as you can because of that special effect that it does come with, her being able to hit every single element regardless of type for weakness damage, which is absolutely sick. I'll talk about that a little bit later on if we ever get Lucy for ourselves. But that is basically it. That's why the main reason why you want to be looking to use this unit, because it is pretty good overall. Now, if you want a good alternative in terms of being a crit buffer, you can actually get Lorelei for free. Lorelei is a unit that is featured in the roguelike event that will be coming in patch 1.9, and she does have access to a 45% at max crit damage buff for 3 turns. This is really good because it means you don't have to rely on the slow and steady process of Urza, and it's technically 5% more crit damage, which is, I mean, something. And she also can buff crit rate. However, it's only tied to her inheritances, and you have to have buff cards. So for example, if you have the most amount of buff cards in your selection of cards at the start of the round, then she will buff you for 15% crit rate. But with the team that's set up, there's not too many buff cards. It's only really Lorelei and Vila. In this particular case, if you were to use Vila, it's not going to be particularly common unless RNG just shines on you and you get a bunch of either Lorelei's buffs or Vila's buffing skills. So you may not necessarily see the 15% crit rate, which is what stack on top of Vila's applied 20% that she gives you from her song. So it's there, but at least you get the critical damage boost for sure with Lorelei. So that's at least something that I can at least completely attest to. Next up is going to be Vila. Vila is going to be the healer. Now you're probably wondering, why should I use Vila over Two Fairy? Well, Vila works the best because she, one, has a crit rate buff. This is important because, again, we're building Lucy for DPS, for crit DPSing, and Vila is, again, one of the only units in the game that can provide you with a crit rate buff, which is important. Very important. She also gives you an additional 20% crit damage up. I know since she's not mental, she doesn't get the extra 20%, but of course, the Song of Passion effect is going to be very good for her because of the extra modifier, and of course, Lucy does have a lot of strong skills in her arsenal, so having that additional bonus effect will definitely be worth in terms of you using it. So that's why I can easily vouch for Vila over Two Fairy. You can still use Two Fairy because Two Fairy does lower critical resistance, and that's a thing that of course can help Lucy crit more. But I do think just for overall like maximum crit damage potential, then you definitely want to go for Vila instead for the extra crit rate to allow yourself to have more opportunity to crit. Next up is going to be Isolde. Isolde is here because she debuffs critical defense minus 50%, which is absolutely insane. I believe this is the card. I went to the wrong card. This is critical defense minus 50%. Also gives you 25% reality shred, which is big. But if you want a budget option, you might laugh at me when I say this, but I do think Twin Sleep is at least a helpful option because you also get the 50% critical defense down from here, and you also get damage taken minus 25%, but you lose out on many of the great things that Isolde does provide. Unfortunately, Vila and Isolde aren't pullable anymore until their respective 3 patch periods end, so you won't be able to get Vila until patch 2.0, and you won't be able to get Isolde until patch 2.1. So that is the unfortunate side of things, but if you happen to get Isolde and Vila, that is going to be a easily match made in heaven for Lucy. But again, the bigger bonuses that Isolde does provide is she gives this effect on Choking on Blood, which gives Rousing Morale, which is 50% more damage for that turn whenever you hit an attack. She also gives you a passive 25% damage boost every single turn when she's in her finale status, which is of course going to be just more damage over time. So that's why I do recommend Isolde there. But that is traditionally the best team you want to go for this type of comp. This is easily going to be the better option for you when you really want to maximize your critical damage potential. Alright, and the last and final team is going to be centered around Reality Shred. Now, this is going to be because both Six and GTN's Reality Shreds do stack. Well, any reality debuffer that we have, like Bicorn, like Isolde, or any other unit that can just do any sort of reality shred, stacks on top of GTN because his is a unique form of reality shred. So that means they can stack on top of each other to make varying numbers. With 6 and his, you get a max of 35%, the same with Isolde. But with Bicorn, you can get up to 40%, for example. So like that's a thing that you can definitely kind of figure out what you want to run the most of. But I do think 35% is well enough for most runs. I've used this kind of same team structure before with units like Spachothea before, just to kind of test without how much damage you can do without burn stacking. But I've used this with other reality characters as well, just to kind of see just how much you can really get away with doing it. So there's that. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the units here. We'll talk about potential recommendations and all that good stuff. So first up is going to be 6. Now 6 is here because he has, of course, a myriad of debuffs that do help the team. Critical defense minus 30%, which is huge for Lucy because again, you're still going to build it for crit regardless of not running crit amplifiers or support. Technically, 2 Fairy is a crit support, so not entirely invalid in that statement. You have access of 20% shreds respectfully, which of course stacks on top of GTNs I mentioned earlier. You have extra damage delta when attacking either a single target or AoE with blind and miss aim, which is very, very good. He also has the ability to set up variance buff, being, you know, penetration rate, which is fantastic for Lucy. That's going to make her hit way harder. You have incantation minded, which is great for her skills. You also have the ability to put up Empower Incantation 1, which can self-rank up Lucy's skills, which is going to be very, very, very good so long as you have 5 or more stacks of Eureka. So there's a lot of what 6 brings to the table that's going to make Lucy shine, literally. So that's really just one of the cool things there. If you don't really have 6, you can go on Ali. Ali does help the team structure issue, and that is going to be something I'll talk about in just for a second, but you can get the 30% damage up from her, and that's still going to be very, very viable. But of course, you can always use Isolde as well, who gives you the same 35% reality shred. It's also a reality unit and also gives Lucy a up to 75% damage bonus, which is also still very, very good. But I just chose 6 because he provides a bunch of varying other bonuses that is of course going to make her literally shine. And you know, as I keep making this pun, let me stop. Anyway, so next up is going to be GTN. GTN is going to be here because again, his unique debuff stacks on top of other varying reality shreds that we have in the game. Again, as I mentioned before, you know, Isolde, Bicorn, you know, those 2 units are going to be units that you can stack up with them to get a higher percent, being the max of, you know, 35, 40, or whatever unit that you run with them. So that's why I do recommend him for this. He also has a really good potent array field effect that gives you a 40% damage bonus if you are a reality unit. Since Lucy is a reality unit, she's going to take full utilization of this bonus, which is going to be perfectly fine. Now you're probably looking at the team and you're saying, wait a minute, Jet, you don't have 3 reality units. If your GTN's not P2, then this is an issue that you do not have to worry about, right? If you have a P2 or above GTN, then guess what? You don't have to worry about this at all. But if you're not P2, then this is an issue because GTN doesn't get his 3 Moxie on start, which is going to be very pivotal to you to set up that damage bonus effect with this array field on ultimate. Now, as I mentioned before, you can easily just go Isolde or Bicorn for similar debuffing effects. Obviously, they don't provide the same bonuses as 6 does, but this is just getting one of those things that kind of just slows the team down, which is still perfectly fine. I don't think that he has to have the 3 units to get that acceleration going, because you can still just kind of chill on him for a little bit. You just kind of pop him skills, stun him, or just rank up his cards until you get his ultimate, and you're still just going to be fine. I think that's going to be really just the best option I recommend. Again, if you really are looking to get that extra bonus, then just go Isolde instead. Isolde still provides Lucy with a bunch of bonuses, so that can still overset that effect. But if you don't have Isolde, I do think that 6 is probably going to be the best option for you going forward, because it still gives you the good bonuses, it provides you with good utility and support, and it provides you with a lot of advantage in terms of battle control. So I do think that it's important for you to kind of use for most forms of content. So yeah. Next up is going to be Two Fairy. Two Fairy is preferred healer this time because we want a form of confusion, which is going to be good for us to hit more crits. And of course, she can lower critical defense down with her baby teeth effect. She's just going to be the preferred healer. She also has access to a bit of support capabilities because she can dispel all debuffs if she crits on ultimate, which is good. And she's just an overall good AoE healer. So again, really good option for the team. I mean, it doesn't really invalidate Vila. You can technically run one or the other depending on what you feel more comfortable with. If you have Vila, then just run Vila instead for this team, because again, that still gives Lucy the additional crit rate, crit damage. It also gives her access to Song of Passion, which is more damage for her incantations, which is very good. So there's a lot of things you can really run with this team to make it better. You can kind of like mix and match your own little strategy based on the units that I'm recommending here. I only really recommended Two Fairy because she's a little bit more comfortable to use as a healer, but that's really just it. And with the combination of things like GTN's damage taking mitigation off his field and a good strong AoE heal, I mean, could be solid, But in terms of replacements for Two Fairy, again, just Vila. It's just Vila. I mean, again, Yensei is fine, but you don't get a lot of the bonuses. And the problem with Yensei and her immunity is that it doesn't stop you from already statuses that you have. Like, the thing with Two Fairy is that while she doesn't give you immunity, she removes the statuses if you crit, which is RNG at most, but still, it's definitely a thing. But there's not really too much of a replaceable in terms of the fact that she can debuff critical resist, which is still important because you need a form of, you at least need some type of a booster for crit damage and critical resistance. Like, you need that for every team you build Lucy in, because you're gonna need to be able to maximize her performance, and having some type of unit that can help you do this role is going to be perfectly valid and perfectly fine. But yeah, but anyway, that is going to be it for the teams here that I have for you. Of course, feel free to leave your own mix max options in the comment section below to help out other newer players or people who are not sure how to build Lucy teams. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.